Cartoons really like being about summer camp, a formative experience that I personally have never had, nor has anyone that I've ever met. Now that I think about it, are summer camps even real? Hello everyone, my friends, my name is Tom, and welcome to Let's Talk of Tom, a show where I talk about any show I want to talk about. I'm here on the screen that you're watching me on, and we're going to talk about cartoons like it's nothing. And today I want to talk about Summer Camp Island. More specifically, the topic I want to focus on is whether or not Summer Camp Island is worth your time. A while ago, Cartoon Network, they just kind of dumped this entire show on their channel through a marathon. And a lot of people were like, is this show even worth watching? And being the person I am, in the position that I am, I feel like it's my responsibility to watch these things that people are kinda unsure about, and I relay to you whether or not it's worth it. I'm an online critic, as awful as that is. So first of all, I just want to get this out of the way. Summer Camp Island is not like a once-in-a-lifetime event. It's not the greatest thing to grace the medium of animation. It's nothing extraordinary. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not worth watching for certain people. I don't think this is a show for everyone. It's definitely a show that a lot of people, their taste is gonna go against it, and that's fine. But if it does appeal to your sensibilities, then this is a very enjoyable show to watch. So I'm just gonna hit y'all with some of my opinions and the information that I think you should consider in deciding whether or not this is a show that intrigues you enough to actually watch. And it's not super long. I don't exactly remember how long it is, but it's not super long. Now, something to consider is the fact that this is not a serialized show. Aside from like the first episode on, like the first episode establishes everything, it establishes the setup and the plot and everything. I think you should start with the first episode, but after that, it doesn't matter what order you watch this in. It's very much a one-off style cartoon, and I actually really like that. I really appreciate that, because there's not a whole lot of that out there. And these days, you know, maybe kids need some lighter watching, because this is definitely a show for kids. It doesn't mean that if you're an adult you can't enjoy it, but it's definitely aimed for that audience. But I mean, like, if you're a kid, you don't want every show to be Gravity Falls, you don't want every show to be Steven Universe, all these like plot-heavy shows where you gotta process all this. Sometimes you just want some mindless, kinda easygoing, lighter viewing, which is Summer Camp Island. Of course, as far as the kids go, now the show is absent from the TV schedule, which I'm not sure if that's because kids just weren't watching it, or if that's Cartoon Network being Cartoon Network. But personally, I would think this is the perfect show for cable, just because it's so easy to run reruns, to not have to worry if kids are gonna understand the context of what's going on, because there isn't really a whole lot of context required to understand what's going on. But it's also not my job to make those network decisions, so, I don't know. The next thing that might turn people away or win them over is the fact that this show is very, 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 very cute. Like, it's very cute. That's the tone, that's the aesthetic. A lot of the characters have, like, cutesy baby voices. The color palette is just really pastel. Just a lot of pastel, lighter colors. And then the character designs and the designs of just the world overall are just, they look very cute and fluffy and warm, and it's like you want to just like take the entire universe of Summer Camp Island and just give it a hug, and it would make you feel warm inside. And for some people, that's not what they want. Some people, that is what they want. So oh god, YouTube is telling me I'm going against the hive mind. It doesn't like it. Oh god. Anyways, I'm not gonna lie, this show gave me some really strong Adventure Time vibes, especially the episode where Hedgehog and Max help out a piece of cinnamon raisin toast to get with a big, strong ice cream sundae Chad. Like, seeing sentient food in a Cartoon Network show just instantly made me like click to Adventure Time, especially since like the styles aren't that different. Of course, this isn't like copying Adventure Time or anything, because one of the big rules of Summer Camp Island is anything and everything can be living and sentient. That's kind of disturbing in a way, but that's the rules. But now that I think about it, some of the less plot-driven episodes of Adventure Time had a really similar feel and flow to Summer Camp Island, is what I thought, which is why I looked up some things, I did some research, and I discovered that Julia Potts, the creator of Summer Camp Island, has a lot of writing credits for Adventure Time. They weren't quite the episodes I had in mind where I was like, oh, this episode of Summer Camp Island kind of feels like this episode of Adventure Time, but it's kind of understandable that if you work on a show and you're a young artist, then you're gonna pick up some things, you're gonna learn some things that will affect how you approach your own projects, and as a result, some of the essence of the projects you worked on in the past will come off on what you make in the future. Art is meant to be just a mashup of whatever you do. I ain't gonna be like, how dare you copy Adventure Time? Adventure Time's the greatest cartoon of all time. How dare you do that? Nah, it's just, that's how it works. That's how it happens. Also, the creator Julia Pott voices Susie, and the character in this show. I knew if I didn't mention that, someone in the comments would be like, you didn't mention this. Well, I mentioned it, so I couldn't really work that into what I was saying, but I mentioned it. Something that I really do like about Summer Camp Island is the fact that I feel like it's kind of carrying the torch of those weird, surreal shows from the turn of the decade, like Flapjack and Chowder, again, Adventure Time, regular show. They have that same detached from reality type of comedy. And it's like the kind that like plays itself really straight, but then like does weird things where you're just kind of turning your head like, huh, that's kind of, it's kind of gonna give me nightmares. And the cutesy tone of the show definitely like amplifies that, and I like that. I like contrasts and things that make other things pop. That's like one of my art kinks. So in the beginning of this show, it's very light. It's almost like if lo-fi was a cartoon, like lo-fi hip-hop, because it establishes an atmosphere. It has a strong aesthetic. But the thing is like lo-fi is so popular because it's so consumable. It's not hard to process. It's very just straightforward. And as a result, there's not a whole lot of substance there. Another thing about like the beginning of the show is the fact that the grounding wasn't quite right. Like there was grounding, but it didn't work for what they were doing. Like it wasn't enough. When you do any sort of surreal content, you have to be able to balance it out with the grounding. You can't go too crazy to the point where your audience cannot process what's going on. I mean, I know that probably better than most people, because if you go back on this channel and watch some of the earlier Let's Talk with Toms, you'll notice that it's a very different show. And a lot of people didn't like it and didn't get it because I was going for something completely different. I was not going for just a let's sit down and talk about a show. I was going for, hey, let's try and make an entertaining, crazy, Eric Andre-esque talk show about cartoons. And there were a lot of ideas going on there that didn't quite meet anywhere, and as a result, you just had this incoherent mess of ideas that weren't very well communicated to the audience. And as a result, a lot of people couldn't really attach themselves to what was going on. And I personally think that probably the best examples of going as far as you can with surreal content and doing it well with like the right amount of attachment to reality would be the Eric Andre show. I think Eric Andre is the king of this style, because when you look at the Eric Andre show, on paper it should be nothing but nonsense. It shouldn't be comprehensible, but there's enough touching base with reality to a point where an average audience can sit down and be like, oh, what the hell? But still be able to connect with it enough to follow along with what's happening. However, this is not what this show was doing at first. At first, things were very all over the place. They were really going balls to the walls with the fact that anything can happen. Any weird, outlandish, fantasy, whatever can happen. But there wasn't enough context for that. There wasn't enough grounding in the universe to really be able to follow along with that and feel like this show was anything more than just, like I said, like a lo-fi song, where it's just a bunch of stuff going on, and it's like, that's cool, but there's nothing bringing that down to earth to make it more comprehensible, to actually communicate ideas. And then, as the show goes on, they kind of start to find their footing with that. They start to figure out the balance, and then they start posing these ethical questions, like these ideas that actually are pretty profound, and then at that point, once they start focusing less on the weirdness of the world and more on ideas and questions, the show actually has a surprising amount of substance. And there were even some moments that like hit close to home with me as an adult, which I did not expect to happen based on the beginning of the show. One of my favorite examples of this is a pivotal turn in the development of Susie, who is the camp counselor who's kind of a bully, but like she's like self-righteous about it. It's like she's just kind of sadistic. She has fun just picking on kids, which is like not cool, but like she throws a birthday party and it's like this cool birthday party, and then all the kids are like, well, even though that party looks really cool, I don't want to go there and be disingenuous and pretend I like Susie because I don't. And even if she has a cool party, I don't want to go to it because it's her party. And then, like, they do this whole, I'm not going to spoil the entire plot of the episode, but they do this whole thing. Basically, Susie finds out that everybody doesn't like her. You would think based on the beginning of the show, like, she would be like, oh, whatever, I don't want people to like me. But she's actually, like, really hurt by this. She's really hurt by the idea that people don't like her. And she explains, like, I know I'm mean, but I always thought that me being mean was charming, you know? Like, she was doing it as a joke, but in reality, she was just being mean and nobody likes her. And it's like this really humanizing moment for this character that up until that point, you really didn't like and had no reason to like. The point is like, there are moments in the show, like, despite the fact that it seems like it's just a kid's show, that are actually really profound, and this isn't something that will go above kids' heads. I think a lot of kids will understand this. And of course, the humanizing moment for Susie doesn't justify the fact that she's a giant bully, but it kind of makes you able to empathize with people who maybe you wouldn't be able to empathize with otherwise. To sum everything up, Summer Camp Island is a show that you could love, it's a show you could hate, it's a show that I could understand why people might not care to watch it, but at the very least, I think that we should give credit to the gems within this show, and that includes morals that more often than not do manage to resonate with the strings within the deepest parts of your soul. That combined with a good sense of tone and even comedic timing, plus likable characters who have their own arcs throughout the show, for me, I would say that made watching the show worthwhile. But I'm not everybody, I'm gonna leave that decision up to you. I want to hear what you guys think. Have you watched Summer Camp Island? What did you think? Tell me in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Roll the outro. Thank you for watching Let's Talk with Tom on the Roundtable, but Tom isn't just on the Roundtable. I have my own self-titled personal channel, I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram, I have a Snapchat, I have all that good stuff. In fact, I even have a Tumblr. So, if you're interested in any of that, check that out, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye! You know, I'm realizing that, like, with this angle, this is, like, just a little bit off. Like, the perspective is a little off, and it makes it look like it's not proportionate. But I promise it is.